consume flesh. We did not, we ate what I see. It's like you say, the manna from heaven. We would
Yes.
literally breathe it in and absorb it through our skin. And then also we would drink this liquid living light. And that was basically the only thing that we needed to consume at all, was this liquid light, but it came from the manna of heaven. I don't know how to explain it. But yeah, we didn't need to eat.
At least not what we're eating. Hello, everybody. So good to see everyone. Favor and Bosto to one and all. So good to see everybody. Thank you, all the moderators. I see David Berry. Hello, David. Haven't seen you in a while. So good to see you again. Susie Q. David Castle, how you feeling? Deborah and all the rest of y'all, how are you doing? Good to see ya. Happy birthday if you got one. This is a second look. My co-host, Miss Trina Phoenix, is here with me, and we have a returning guest, Judith Kowaba. Kwoba. Thank you. Thank you. I have a hard enough time speaking American, much less English. So, and American has its own slang. So Judith, so good to see you. And this show is kind of dedicated to the day that all of us will in fact encounter, and that is All Souls Day, or All Hallows Eve. So Miss Trina, welcome.
Welcome, Wade. It's so good to see you. And hi, Soul Tribe. And Judith, great to be with you again.
Yeah. I've been looking forward to this one.
Me too.
I think we got a great topic. Sarah Horton, hello. How are you? Deborah Sloan. Everyone is excited to see you again. Here's Loretta. So let's just get right to it. It's interesting because all of us, everyone hearing our voice, seeing our image, will eventually be what we would call dead. At least physically. We all hope, and whatever your belief is that the soul of the spirit continues. But isn't it interesting that around the world, the living separate a day that honor the dead?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and we do it now in the 21st century in social customs that make it more of a party, but nevertheless, it doesn't change the fact that we are remembering the dead.
What do you make of the idea that this is actually the Day of the Dead that died in the deluge?
Now that's an
that
interesting
is where it has
thought.
its roots. And honestly, when I heard that the first time, that hit home. It made so much sense to me.
Yeah.
And and then of course the customs that we have these days, you can't really, I mean, it's a little bit creepy, some of the stuff. It doesn't really, well, to me, it does not really look funny or entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And I do not participate, but I don't participate in Easter or Christmas either.
Mm-hmm.
A true nonconformist, because we don't either. We don't.
So, and honestly, I don't care what other people do with this day. Yeah, that's not my business. But
I like the idea of the flood, though. That's, you think about that. When I heard that, so there have been great tragedies that have happened to our species, great cataclysms, where large amounts of us died very quickly at one time. Flood being one. There's the one that Göbekli Tepe up in Turkey where we knew the comet came in. I think in Genesis 2, it gives validation of that comet hitting, because we had a plentiful earth in Genesis 1, but in Genesis 2, everything is burned up.
Yep.
Even man.
Yep.
In fact, we're resurrected from the ash.
You know what I've been thinking? If there hadn't been Nephilim, that died in that deluge, would we even have that holiday?
Wow.
I guess the question would be, would we still be here? They seem to enjoy eating us. So, I mean,
Yeah,
now,
maybe it's first and foremost a memorial day for them.
Yeah.
This is deep when I start thinking about this. I mean, Trina, I look at the fact of the psychic imprint that it has made upon us.
Huge.
I
And,
mean, maybe
we
that's
have
what drives us
memory.
crazy.
Yeah, we have cellular memory of this stuff too. Even though we don't have conscious access to it, the cellular memory is in our flesh. So that's powerful when you think about, is this a celebration of the deluge? That's powerful. And it's really amazing too, because, you know, they say this is the day when the veil is the absolute thinnest. So that's amazing. And the ancestry that would be tied to that, and the knowledge could be
This has got
spooky.
me thinking because,
Yeah.
so I'm a great fan of Ben Davidson over at Suspicious Observers. Lynn and I have met Ben. He's really a great guy. He's writing a book now that he's going to be releasing called Cataclysms. And by all indications, the science is saying we are heading for a cataclysm.
Yeah.
So, ladies, walk with me on this. What I'm thinking about is when you have that many, I don't know, living souls is the right word, energies that are extinguished in a physical catastrophe, that's a huge psychic release of some very negative energy, would you not say?
Yeah. But what I'm seeing is like, okay, well, if they were wiped out of their bodies like really quick, a lot of people that get killed like that, they don't know they're dead. So, you know,
well, that brings up a whole thing. What if
this is what I'm seeing. So I'm seeing like a lot of these beings that like to harness and control souls. You know, they're probably shape shifting into all these gods or whatever you believe, or grandma or whatever, and they're getting these beings, and they probably have them trapped in the fourth dimension, which is directly above us. So if that all that energy is stuck into that fourth dimension through this mass collective trauma, and this is the thinnest veil day, it would imagine that a lot of these spirits would be reaching out because they would be lost, confused, and not knowing what to do or where to go.
What do you think, Judith?
Yeah, when I was practicing Tibetan Buddhism, we had this practice called pova, and that is where you learn to stay conscious in your death process, and you learn to exit here.
The Keter, the crown.
Yeah, not down there. That would be not so good. So
I've heard about that, Judith, about not falling asleep when you die.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've heard that before.
And you can even, there is a video on YouTube where they visited a monastery in Tibet, and they did that pova. And my povas, they always took 3 days. So, and after that, the teacher is checking your head, because you have a visible sign, a hidden sign, and a I forgot the other one, sorry. But the visible sign is you have a small hole in your head, and the teacher checks your head after that if you display that, if you went through. And in that video where they visit this monastery, all the participants have grass blades in their hole, and they film it very close, and you can see that it's really sticking in the skull. So why did I say that? Okay. So during those sessions, what you could do, let's say somebody had died, you could bring a picture, and on the back of the picture, you write down the name, day of death, circumstances or reason of death, and you give it to the teacher. And he will, during those sessions, he will do the pova for them, so that it does not matter if they fell asleep or not during their dying process. And I had one of my co-workers, she died in a crashing helicopter. So, and I noticed his facial expression when I gave that photo, because he turned it around and then he went. And that reminded me, when you die in such circumstances, yes, that there is a good chance that you do not realize, because it's too, you didn't have, you know, you could say on the one hand, you don't have time to think about it. Does that, is it convenient for me now? Yeah, am I okay with this right now or not? It just happens, and then that is it. But on the other hand, yeah, it can be a very shocking experience.
I've had one person compare it to the difference as walking into a warm bathtub as opposed to being thrown into a frozen lake.
That's what it would seem to me.
One is, I don't know, it is that sleep process. The other one, you're literally pushed out. And that's very interesting. So, Judith, so did you gain anything from being able to accomplish the rite or the process?
I have to say, when I did it the first time, I had all the trips running in my head that probably anybody has who was doing it for the first time. And I was telling myself stories like, I'm the worst meditator in the world. I will never go through, and this and that and what have you. And it went on and on. And then the second day, before the afternoon session, I had the attitude, you know what? Fuck it.
That's a breakthrough. That's a breakthrough.
I will no longer think about it, and that is when it happened.
Yeah, you just let it go.
Yep.
Yeah. So you let go. Now you are. I would equate it to.
It was totally silly.
It was silly.
Yeah, it was so.
I like that. How's that?
You know, I looked around and people were falling. You know, many were on a really emotional roller coaster. Some were crying like never before. And then the next minute they were laughing their heads off. And but for me, it was just silly. I was just, I wasn't really laughing hard. I was just sitting there with
Yeah.
And my experience was more like not a roller coaster, but like a carousel. And it felt a little bit like Superman, you know, going woo.
Wow.
And no, kitty cat. And yeah, so I thought, yeah, well, what was all that fuss about in your head?
It's true. So how do you view death now, your own death?
You know, after my brain surgery and with the symptoms that I talked about it last time. So during that time, I was completely calm. I never wasted one thought on dying. And right now, when I had a couple of weeks ago a really, really rough time, and but all of that is gone. I was
Right.
telling myself that I can heal myself and that everything will be fine. And those symptoms went away. So the only thing that, you know what I would love to do? To die while I'm sleeping. I mean, literally sleeping.
That's how I'm going out.
Mhm.
Yeah,
No,
that's your plan as well.
Oh, no, I'm serious. I've planned for this for 30 years.
Mm,
I learned in my Hebraic studies back when I was in Bible college that the interesting thing about the Babylonian cultures all in that region is that many of them practiced the appointed day, and they would literally go in, get into their cot, have a final meal, many of them, bring up the blanket, and they let the spirit go.
yeah.
I had a yogi in India write me an email and tell me that that is a practice that many Hindus are aware of as well.
Yeah. Maybe that's a little bit like Pova, because I also know that some yogis did it deliberately. Let's say they were captured or anything and they weren't in the mood for being imprisoned. They just did the Pova and went.
Love that.
Took off.
What's your perspective, Trina, on this?
I think that's I think that's the way it's natural. I think that's a beautiful way to leave the body. I've seen so many do it. So I saw my best friend's mom just say, I'm out of here, lay down, go to sleep. I saw both of my great grandmothers did it that way. My last grandmother did it that way. She waited till my mom left to go take a shower, and then she was like, I'm out. And she literally just left her body. No stroke, no heart attack, just passed away. Yeah, I think that this is how it's supposed to be done. I think all of this group is learning to connect to the higher parts of our mind. So we're not just operating as sleeping human, which are completely in the bottom chakras, just existing survival materialism. We're all connecting to the higher realms. So I think that when we leave, we are going to have the opportunity to go straight through Kether, which is the crown. So I think that's exactly where we're aiming for, and I think it's brilliant.
I found out something about my family last night. I was talking to my brother, and it's now turning out that in my bloodline, long line of paganism, witches that have, and it's interesting because my grandmother, she made it to 99.4 years. That's how she left. She went into the bedroom, take a nap, and she departed. Which, yeah, I mean, it happens. I mean, Lynn and I were talking last night that when I went into anaphylactic shock from being stung by, the 30 plus African bees, hovering in that emergency room. So that's a quasi state, I would say. Wouldn't y'all kind of agree that you're between two worlds at that point?
Yeah. Yeah. I think all you need is your body to fail hard enough, and you start doing that transfer. Like your wife, she sees that with the dying.
All
They're
the time.
transferring before they go. So yeah, like I said, I think when you do a slower process, you get a little bit more time to integrate. But like I said, if it's sudden, unexpected, I really see a lot of souls might need some assistance because they
I
completely
can
are
see
just
that. I really
don't
can't.
get it. Yeah, they don't
Lynn
understand.
said that she has seen those. There's a number of different states. One, if they have a heavy religious background, they tend to have more of a fearful anticipation. There are those who resist death. They literally have to medicate them in preparing them and they call it a transition. Then you have those who literally will themselves for departure.
Yep.
And it's amazing because you see the difference of the spirit in it. Some of these spirits don't want to go. Others are ready to get the hell out of here.
Yep. Yep. You know, so it always stuck with me when Anton LaVey,
Yeah.
you know, when he died, what he said, and his sister, you know, the priestess was with him. It was like, oh no, oh no, oh no, I didn't know. And he was like freaking out. So I was like, oh man, I was like, can you imagine what was going on there? So yeah,
it's quite interesting. I mean,
yeah, we don't die when we die, guys.
So we practice, and I know down in Mexico, particularly, All Souls Day is, you know, All Hallows Eve is a big thing. I mean,
Huge.
yeah, it's very huge.
Aren't they like the biggest? Like, isn't that how it started?
Yeah.
With them?
Yeah. Pandemic, I mean, those festivals were quite something to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Day of the Dead.
The Day of the Dead.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
so interesting
And
because
you know, they say they put the masks on so the ghosts couldn't identify the living from the dead. So that's why they told you to put the costume on so they wouldn't know which ones were real and which ones were not. So that was like one of the things was that they would match the dead so that the dead that was walking wouldn't be able to find them. It was a way to cover your light. Yeah.
it reminds me of there's a program called Paranormal, caught on tape or whatever it is, and the more and more that these CCTVs that are everywhere are capturing what appears to be evidence of two realms living not side by side, but interwoven to one another. More spirits, literally traffic cameras catching spirits appear in the middle of the intersections and cars going through them. And the cars stop because they could see them.
Yes.
Judith, what do you think?
Yeah, of course they are roaming around. And sometimes you can end up in a room, let's say for some stupid reason, a spirit got stuck in the corner of the room. And depending on what mood that spirit is in, you might have freaky experiences, no experiences at all, or they might even...
Is there much activity in Germany in the paranormal and, you know, I guess what we would call ghost investigators, people, you know?
I'm not saying it's not, but that it's a really huge thing, I don't think so.
Okay.
It's so funny.
Especially now, people are preoccupied with resisting on a daily basis with the
last time you and I did our show, Judith, we had supernatural activity flying around on the screen. I was like, what is that? We literally, Wayne, we had something flying in her space. We were talking about healing with the fairy, and that this thing was flying through the screen and it was too big to be a fly. I don't know what it was, and we caught it. We literally were able to screenshot a couple
When was this?
We did our
I
show.
had Trina as a guest.
Okay.
And during that interview, there was. And we captured one on the video.
Fantastic. It's so true. I mean, in, you know, my philosophy classes is that when you study, many of the philosophers have always say that there is no empty space.
No.
Life is everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
It's in the air, it's in all the elements is life. There's air life, and there's earth life, and there's water life, and there's fire life. And that's what we are. So when we're operating in the lower chakras, we're very earthy. And then as we move up into the system, into the stomach and the digestion and the emotions, we get into the water. And then as we get higher through that, we're getting into the air, the spirit, the breath. And then when you get into the fire, that's when you've gotten to Kether, to crown. That's Pegasus.
And some would say that's paganism.
Yes, and I don't care because it's
See?
real and it's
And
right.
Johnny
We
crack
are in a
corn and I
body.
don't care. Exactly.
That's right. I'm in a body and I'm going to work with the things that are controlling and having an influence on this body. Because as we well know, like when I got in the fight with the neck that day,
Yeah.
that was when I really totally got a grip on your body has its own personality. And even within the body itself, even parts of your body have their own really strong personality. So we need to understand what's going on within before we can understand anything that's showing up on the outside. We have to really start to understand what's going on inside of us, which is profound because it's atomic fusion.
Oh, it's, I think it's on a level of beyond even quantum. I don't think we've discovered it yet. It's the body. It's so interesting because all spirits seem to be preoccupied of being around living bodies.
Yeah, you know, I was thinking, Wayne, what if the fall was mad scientists in the etheric realm that literally learned how to split the atom? Because if they split the atom, that would have taken us from an androgynous being into a polarized being, fused with an ionic bond, putting us into a positive negative polarity, which would be atom.
I
So
agree.
meaning atom is the atom?
I do. I do. And they took the rib from Adam to make from Adam to make Eve. That was when the separation, I think, took place. It was when they created Eve from Adam. I think that was when we had the first, and that's why Adam was removed and fought and brought down to earth, was because of this fusion that happened.
We were reading the pseudo-apocrypha. I mean, Eve is saying that she wasn't like Adam.
No, I don't think she was, because I think Adam was whole. He was still androgynous. And I think that the separation, when they turned Adam into no longer the androgynous being, I think they modified him when they modified Eve. And it was because they separated Adam somehow into a positive negative polarity through an ionic bonding somehow. So
I'm reading in one book, they said, much along that line, that the gods were practicing. I mean, and we call them gods. They're just another advanced race. That's what they are.
You know, I was thinking about this, Wayne. The only difference between them and us is that we don't get to remember.
Yeah.
They have knowledge and we don't, because we have been put under this veil of forgetfulness. That the part of our mind that controls memory is the hypothalamus, the hippocampus in the brain, which is Pegasus. So the white horse of the Bible, that Christ returns, the second coming, that's when you get back into this hippocampus. Because if you can get into this part of the brain, you have access to all that you ever were, because this is where your memories are hidden. It's inside of the mind, and this is where we're going. And once we get there, we are the second coming, because we will be flooded with light. The white horse comes in the cloud. Yeah, your brain. It's your brain. And
That's
the white
what many
stone,
scientists say. What we experience at death is nothing more than the collapse of the synaptic pathways exploding.
correct. And I think if we can direct our energy to dive straight into the hippocampus of our mind, we might be actually to go into the records of our oversoul self construct. And bam, right there, you might be out the door. Freedom, freedom rings, baby. Boom, Pegasus, take me home.
Think about this, though. With the world, virtually all people, I would say occupants by the vast majority, are on pharmaceutical drugs.
Right. So they don't have access to these subtle frequencies.
Because these salts, these iodines, these crystalline structures that we're consuming, it's exactly what it is. We're literally ingesting life forms that literally attach to these areas that I think prevent that.
Yep. Yep. but you can control the vibration in your mind, and you can break those bars, because they're bars. And I think a lot of the bars of our mind go with the blood, and it's the iron cage. It has to do with the iron in the blood.
But I don't think that is for everybody.
I agree. I think that we are so diverse. I still contend the theory that there are multiple creators. There's multiple races. The thing about Jehovah, Yahweh, he literally said to and that time they were basically Samaritan, that the Jews would be his chosen race. So clearly identifying a delineation between the other races, which leads to the question then, well, what do you mean there's just one creator?
You know, every time I hear that, Wayne, you know what my mind goes to? Israel, Isis, Ra, and El. It's the Trinity. And that's about, you know, the Christ consciousness and the higher mind activation. I think that's all it means, is the race of Israel is the ones that are using the higher capacity of their minds versus the ones that are just sleeping, using the lower chakras, just living a normal, you know.
But those can be in all nations.
Yes, all nations, all races, all tribes. But it's a matter of which humans are activating their higher powers and connecting to the spiritual part of themselves versus a lot of the ones that are sleeping. And
let's go back all the way to what I was teaching yesterday. So let's talk about this, because if I take it into that context, I have a real dilemma, because if Eve was in fact literally raped by another species where the bloodline was contaminated right from the get-go, that then the question truly becomes, well, what are we talking about here? Because that shows two very clear paths of two different types of humans.
Absolutely. I do see that way. And I think that's I think the two different races are basically the ones that are serpent built, serpent created, which are more earthly from what I've seen. So the skin, the sin, it was about a vibration thing and about a molecular structure, which would be the atomic structure. Is what I'm seeing was the separation of an atom created the polarity, because before they were separated, they were whole. And then when you pull them apart, they become negative, positive charged, and they bond. And that would give us all this polarity. So
I'm not following. Help me out on here, because
I think all of us in this form are in a denser vibratory rate through the mingling of the atom. So I think that the ones that are going to ascend are going to be the ones that know how to use the higher parts of the mind. It was just like when Eve was raped and Cain and Abel, and Cain killed Abel, but then Seth was brought to replace Abel. And Seth was a beautiful, profound being. And it was ironic too, because when in Greek mythology, when Medusa was killed and they chopped her head off, she gave birth to Poseidon's children when she was raped. And out came Crystal and Pegasus.
No, okay, I get that. But can we stay back on the thing about because I'm confused here, because if we say that the original Adamites were two, actually they were one and then separated into two. Bloodlines are very important. I did a whole series on that. It's a whole thesis on it. And so it still doesn't address that the fact that you have the seed of the serpent that entered into the bloodline of all human beings. Correct. And the thing about it is that will always take a predominant set, because if you took the seed of Adam, Adam would be on top of the seed of the serpent.
Yes.
Well, you can never then delineate the serpent seed, which says that's what humans are. And correct. Because, you know, you look at the archangels, the seraphims, They are the serpent angels.
You know, the only thing that I wonder, the only remedy for that, I wonder is if there's some way that the mitochondria has been preserved, which would be the original Eve codes, which would be a separation, but I don't know if that would, do you think that was serpent involved with Eve,
No, yeah.
the
Lilith
creation
said
of
it
Eve?
was she goes into detail in the Liber Lilith of what happened from a genetic point of view. It contaminated the autogen, which was Adam,
Autogene. Yes, the autogen.
and that the heaven Adam separated because of the incursion of what the bloodline was going to be. Otherwise, there would be no original in which to imprint the next version out on.
See, that's kind of where I went, Wayne. It's this whole flesh thing is a messed up deal.
Judith, you're sitting up there. Join on into the conversation.
Yeah, the Seraphim, to me, I did a very, very long show. Do you know Pierre Sabak?
That sounds familiar, yes.
Okay, so he goes very, very deep into etymology. And we did an almost 3-hour show about that, serpents in the Bible. And I agree with him when he says that the seraphim are alien races, probably originating in Sirius.
Okay, that the race of beings.
Mm.
Yeah, I mean, I look at this as more and more of an experiment. Us.
Absolutely, Wayne. Absolutely.
I think it is. I think
absolutely.
I don't think I think they're writing down as it happens, going, "Oh crap! Did you see that? We better not do that again."
I think that's what happened when they first got a hold of Adam. Yeah.
I mean, that dude, he, and Lilith, Eve, they got totally screwed over. But Adam really he had coitus in the rear end that he wasn't even expecting.
Yep.
I mean,
total deception. Yeah.
He just came in and I don't know, that the more you study this, and please give me your thoughts on this, both of you, I see the sapien race as an assaulted race, species.
Yeah.
We seem to have been assaulted from the very get-go.
I was going to say, even when you go all the way to the Nag Hammadi with the Sophia teachings, it talks about the Sophia's essence was stolen by the dark forces and she dove into a tree, but they still captured a part of her essence. And that was how they formed and created Yaldabaoth.
I did.
And then it went in. Yeah. So, I mean, this is going always back to these rapes of women. It's always about stealing something from the woman.
Yeah, but Sophia is an anagram for AI force. Force being the Greek word for light, and AI, AI. It's the false light matrix. That's all she is.
You got it. But do you think that the false light matrix was taken from her organic true light matrix and they brought it into the darkness? Like, because she says they got part of her light and brought it down into the darkness.
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that, I mean, she deliberately created this Yaldabaoth character all by herself. Allegedly, she shouldn't have done so, but she wanted to do it all by herself. So you could argue that she did know that she's messing up.
Yes.
That's interesting, because if you remember in the Liber Lilith, Lilith tried to make a human. And yes, she actually tried to, and the problem was she did not hold the divine light. And that's when she had to go to Samael, and Samael, when she finally tricked him in saying, but you have the power that you can make this a living thing. And that's when Samael put his essence over the body, which became the Adam. And from that, life was extracted. And it was the Adam that actually absorbed the divine spark of Samael.
Wouldn't that make sense? That's why Lucifer would be the father. Light
Would
bearer.
be.
If it had the light, the light bearer. Oh my gosh. I literally just saw Samael as Lucifer. Whoa.
And it gets to that whole point of exactly is there's obviously an essence to us. In my conversation with my brother last night is the fact that our bodies generate an electrical pulse. I
Here's
mean,
another thought.
hit us.
I once listened to, I can't recall which one it was. It was in a video by Sivan Boma. And in that video, he mentioned that, let's say, if millions and millions of people, he was referring to Jesus. And he said, if millions and millions of people pray, are on their knees, and adore that character and give their energy to that character, you can rest assured that on the astral plane, after a while, there will be a being like that walking around.
Absolutely.
So, and that really hit home with me. I have that stuck in my mind, and
I can't even fathom how powerful that thought form has to be, because so much thought has gone into it.
So my question is, did we invent the gods instead the other way around?
Yeah, I think about that all the time, Judith.
My answer conclusively is yes.
Me too. I'm thinking.
I don't believe any question. Why does humanity need a God? What is the purpose of a God? What is a God supposed to do?
I think God is just creation, and we have the ability.
But that would be us.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. So I think that God is through us.
You know, I was a practicing Christian for 50 years, ordained minister of the gospel. I did exorcisms. I preached in the prisons and did hospital ministries, laying hands and seeing people literally recover. But the point is, today, I cannot, in all good consciousness, be true to thy own self above all things, bow down or worship another spirit, because I don't worship my own spirit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't understand, how does one spirit, as Amber Dawn would say, absorb the energy of another spirit in worship? I don't get that.
So would you also say there is no creating force in the universe whatsoever?
No, that is the caveat. There is this creative force, which we seem to be uniquely, we create and we don't even realize it.
Yeah, that's why we can create children.
Yeah, I mean, if you follow the Adam and Eve story, this God that created Adam wasn't smart enough to name the animals. But Adam was.
Yeah.
And in fact, you know, you get into the story when you read the Apocalypse of Moses, you find out that, and in fact, it's actually in the book of Exodus, God told Moses, you are God.
Mm-hmm.
And then yesterday we read that the whole thing with Satan and Lucifer was that Michael forced them to worship Adam because Adam was God.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so who's doing the creating here?
Right.
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, it's always going back to this image thing. Have you noticed that? It's always going back to the image.
Always on the image.
Always. Like Michael said, you must worship the image of God, because Adam is the image of God.
Exactly.
The image of God made manifest. So that means that our form is the image of God.
Now, whoever wrote the story, this is like the best freaking movie of all time, because you've got this being called Lucifer, the light being, right? Stood in the firestones of the Godhead and saying, like hell, I'm going to bow down and worship that. I
because I
mean,
was first.
whoa.
Totally understand the argument. That would be
Yeah,
like
I
really
did.
sad. Yeah, I could totally get that. It's like, man, yeah, and then to be cast out, and yeah, that sounds like a pretty nasty
You know
thing.
what I
That's what.
also don't, I'm sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Judith.
What I also don't fully comprehend, on the one hand, the gods are supposed to be archetypes.
Right.
But then again, they are also planets.
Yeah.
How does that really work?
See, that makes total sense to me with the micro and macro of creation itself. So within this solar system that we're currently in, we have the identical solar construct of the planets in our body, as well as the stars, the constellations. It's all inside of us, just like a map of our solar system. So that's why I was seeing this profound connection with Pegasus and the second coming of Christ, because the Pegasus holds the memories. And then the light, I think the light comes from the pineal gland, and then it all goes through the images. None of it is there until you can see or capture the images. So creation is basically based upon vision.
How would that transcend into the spirit realm when we talk about these glands? But, because I was told in a meditative session that I was in that there literally is what we would call the spirit brain.
Yes, and that's what I'm telling you. I literally see an as above, so below. And the etherical body is perfectly, it's a replica of what you're in now, but it's not physical. It's etherical, and it is a replica. And I'm seeing there's more than one. So I'm seeing these things, and I'm going to go find them when I die. I'm going to find my replicas because I know that they're out there. I can see them.
You mean like in a parallel universe or what?
Yes, definitely in a different dimension. Yes, and they're points of fixed light. It's almost like they're in a position of light. So I don't know if that's your star in the firmament, if that's that point fixed light that in this first layer, because then once you get through that layer, you can get to another layer, and there's another replica above that layer. So I am seeing, and it's weird too, because like the first one is asleep, and the second one is in a chair. And then the third one, I haven't got the full vision on that. I can see through its eyes, but I can't see the body yet. So I'm trying to get there.
So the Apostle Paul wrote, actually, whoever wrote the book of Hebrews, but in there, and in fact, it's Hebrews 4:12. It talks about the separating of the soul and the spirit. So there's references throughout the complete Old Testament. It's not your spirit that has to be saved, it's your soul. Clearly showing then, or leading to my next question, do you believe that the spirit and soul can separate at the point of physical death, where one would be condemned to go back into the density and the other of the light would go and transcend into a higher ascension? In other words, shedding, you're actually giving life, because that's what Adam was originally designed to do as a hermaphrodite, was to actually give birth within itself. My point is that we spend a lifetime on this planet. The spirit is constant, but the soul is ever growing. So is it possible, as Paul alluded to, or the writer of Hebrews, that there is this separation where if the soul does not match the spirit's frequency, it cannot ascend up, and thus the soul is shed? And
That makes sense. I could see that. I could totally see that. And it could seem to me that that's why they would want to harness that energy, and they wouldn't want you to be able to get out, because I'm pretty sure that the soul is the physical material light with the patterns, codes, and information and memory in it. So it's basically they're stealing your memory stick.
But what if they are aligned, the soul and the spirit?
Then in the belief system is that the soul is granted ascension.
Doesn't that make sense why these so-called ascended masters would then be able to have their memories, because they were able to keep their soul? Without the soul, you can't have your memories. This is what they keep showing me, that the soul is like it's the causal body part of you that has access to all the memory
I
of
say
your
that that's
soul.
the conflict that we face within, is the conversation we're having with is actually we've given, as you would said earlier about the Christ consciousness, Judith, that we literally have given birth to another entity within us. And that's why we have debates with ourselves, because literally there are two of us in here.
I wouldn't call that Christ consciousness.
No, about the image of Christ, people believing in Jesus,
Oh, okay.
and thus, yeah, no. There's two different things here. So it is a different point of view, is that is what is happening. You're literally having a conversation with yourself, which is plural, not single.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems very feasible to me, because you hear the story all the time of those who seem to have, quote unquote, no soul, no empathy for other human beings. And then you have other human beings, that is exactly what it seems, that's all they have, is empathy for the condition of mankind.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's an interesting thought, I think.
Like I said, that I think the soul is seriously some kind of massive collective recording device, and it's literally multidimensional in its function. So, and that, everybody's like, they're never going to get my soul, all this, they ain't going to get my soul stuff. I think it's about, because it has something to do with the memory. And, the second coming of Christ and the Jesus Immaculate Conception, and people really didn't have an understanding of higher thought at that time. I wonder if that was somehow where we got the part of the hippocampus started to develop in the mind of the atom that was, wiped out to like monkey mind, and this was part of our organic rebuilding of the human. And that was like the team good, trying to get us out of slavery, but we can only do it through our own consciousness. So you would have to go through these ladders of consciousness to break yourself out of it. And I wonder if this was our own challenge that we set up for our own self.
It's an interesting concept, is the fact that if you go back, as I did in the program, the rite of birth passage, what's really happening here at the moment that we transcend through the veil, and the veil is the veil of blood, because that's what this side is about. And so the thing is consciousness of spirit at that moment before birth. And is the soul attached before, or once the soul attached after the veil is pierced?
Maybe it enters with your first breath.
You see, now that's very interesting, because that would then correlate to what is taught in the current writing in Genesis.
Wayne, Adam couldn't rise until the breath of spirit was blown into the nostrils.
Well, and Eve said, I didn't get the breath of life. You did, Adam.
Okay.
See, that was very interesting when she said, you had the breath of God blown into you. I did not.
Yeah. So I wonder if there's something with that, because remember, Adam could name everything. He had his memory.
It's interesting when you think of his seed compared to the serpent seed.
Yes.
About the soul now. Is it the battle really about the soul, not the spirit?
Because I wonder if everything that has animation has spirit, because it couldn't
have to.
Any. Yeah, that's what I was seeing, is like a spirit is like a foundational essence of life itself, but the soul is the templates, the memory, the words. Yeah. So, but when do we get the soul? That's a very interesting question.
I have struggled with that all my life. And by the way, folks, the conversation in the chat room is really good. I've been watching it going down the side.
Love you guys.
It is something that I've struggled with. Is I meditate on this, because is my soul the one doing the meditating? Because I tell you, here's the thing. In my meditations, I have this constant sense that I am in the background.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I am, yes, having the conversation, but I have this, it's almost kind of a space-time spatial thing that I'm in the background.
Totally get that, Wayne.
Yeah, anyway.
Almost in the observer position.
Yes, yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
and yeah, when you can get into all three positions at the same time, man, that's a ride.
Maybe the task here is to bring spirit and soul into balance.
Into back into
be.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. That we could master the flesh, which is beast, animal, you know, that's how we got into the denser. We had to use animals to create these bodies. And like I said, I think the power of Adam was so strong in its coding that even, you know, from the Neanderthals, we could become these more godly looking beings, you know, more flesh instead of hairy and fuzzy. Just, you know, it's just a different part of evolution. I really wonder if that was the whole goal, was to go into these dense parts of creation to see if we could actually reconnect the soul and spirit and operate in the flesh while not letting the flesh just consume you with your physical material desires, because the body has its own needs and its own agenda.
And again, it's why they call it All Souls Day. They don't call it All Spirits Day. They call it All Souls Day.
Correct. And think about it. These souls that are trapped, they still have some consciousness of their death. They're traumatized. They're still thinking they're in their lifetime. They're looping in their
when
own
I was
soul.
doing exorcisms, the thing that I found interesting and it was mostly, you know, women that it seemed to have this problem, but there was clearly a distinct other personality in there. And I often question, so is this a soul that we're dealing with? Because a soul would know how to navigate a human body very well.
Yeah.
It would know the intricacies of the mind.
Yeah.
I don't
Be
know.
like riding a bicycle.
Yeah,
So
and you know,
you would kind of integrate with it again. Yeah, that to me would make sense.
These exorcisms, if I may ask, did they last? Or did people have the same problem after a while?
If I only knew what I knew now, is that unfortunately we never closed the portals.
Oh, sugar and spice. Yeah, we should know that, right, Wayne?
Yeah,
We should be taught that. That should be very important on the list of things.
Back then, it was. Yeah, I tell you, I got the sense many times they were masking, but I didn't have the knowledge of understanding how the personality got in there. Now, you know, to answer your question, I think there were those that just relapsed. Yeah.
Yeah, because that is what I heard, that in many cases, no matter who is conducting the exorcism, that after a while, they are back to square one.
If I only knew, I think there's a song like that, you know, because the wisdom I have now, I mean, it would be a totally different outcome.
Holy crap. I got portals I got to close, Wayne.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I never understood. I mean, that studying the Solomon magic is really, that was one of the things I got out of dealing with one of the spirits there, is that most people, they in the human race, they open portals and they never close them.
You're right.
And it's right. And that's what she's. So anyway, I have loved this conversation.
Is it over already?
It has been freaking fantastic, because it tells me that we are a very unique bioorganism. That's I think. How's that for a sanitary view?
I love it. I love it. And I love how all three of us have different perspectives, and it brings such a fuller look into the subject that, you know, it's just all of us see it in different ways. And I think that is so awesome.
You ever gone to the carnival where you had the teacup rides, you know, where you get the people in, you had to spin? You see, it only works when everyone spins. If you only got one person spinning, I mean, the other, you really working.
Yes.
Yeah. So we were spinning very nicely.
Yeah. We all got a part of the wheel.
It's like, woo, baby. So Judith, how So tell us how's everything on your end, and I know you need to send me your contact information. I had it somewhere, and I can look back on one of the previous videos. But so tell us a little bit about yourself as as we wrap this up, and what you got going on, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, well, as I said, officially, I'm retired now.
I love this. Good. That means you can pursue the things you really want to do.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's
And
freedom.
so no longer the sort of unstable living conditions over my head.
Excellent.
Yeah. So on a personal level, that's okay. Other than that, I'm very involved here with, I don't know if you noticed that, but there is a huge resistance here in Germany against the corona measures.
They have censored it pretty good here in the US. I have not heard anything like that.
I
Yeah,
only
that is
know because I
you do
saw
not
your
watch my
video.
channel.
I saw your video, Judith. That's the only way I found out. Yes, I didn't know either.
I mean, not a single word.
Yeah. But we had very large demonstrations, and one with 1.3 million, one with 2 million people. And
they have completely sanitized that story.
we have a large class action lawsuit against Christian Drosten and the WHO. Several players in there and other politicians that will take place in the US. It's being organized here from Germany, but and in a couple of weeks it will come out in the media that all the people who lost their jobs, their livelihoods, they can jump onto that class action lawsuit. And there is also with Christian Drosten, the impacts for this guy are coming hard and fast, because it seems that his dissertation for his PhD is missing, or he never did one. And there are a lot of things that do not really add up, but people keep digging and digging and digging. And so he's in deep shit. I can tell you that. So and it's very interesting to see a lot of good things came out of this. Doctors for Enlightenment, Lawyers for Enlightenment, Parents Rising, Encourager, that is for people who want to give back their badge and do not know, so now what? So they will support you financially, psychologically, give you a therapist, and help you finding a new job. So a lot of things really well organized that I absolutely love.
Excellent. I gotta
so
tell you,
grateful to you, Germany. Yes, Germany, you are setting a foundation, and there's people working on that in Canada right now as well. So they're working on some class action lawsuits and some different types of legal movement. So this is literally how it gets done, guys. It's not by protest. It's basically pen and paper, and you guys are putting the pen to the paper, and that is going to be what's going to get you home.
I think the protests are important because it gives people confirmation I'm not alone. You know, you might have lost friends, family members might no longer talk to you or whatever. And in those situations, it can feel very, very lonely. So that experience of being out there in the streets with millions, I think that is important.
That's beautiful. Our protests haven't been going so well like that. So hopefully that we can get on board with stuff like that. Yeah,
that's unity.
That's a beautiful thing you guys are doing.
Yeah. I hope we can get that over here. I mean, I was part of the protest of the 70s, and I remember the marches, and we had that bond, and this is something I could get behind. I hope it does come here.
Yeah, because our protests right now, they're not turning out like that, because we got a lot of paid opposition trying to cause problems with the peaceful protests. So you know, that's going to change and dissipate, because a lot of these people that have been doing this for these past few months, a lot of them are, you know, facing a lot of legal stuff now. So a lot of them are like, man, this might not have been such a good idea, because now I'm looking at 10 years of federal prison time. So I have a feeling it's starting to go into the upswing to where we might get some more movement with that in a positive way. I hope.
I hear Forrest Gump. Stupid is, stupid does.
Totally. Totally.
All of you moderators, thank you, David, Mary, Brandy, all the rest of the moderators. Thank you all for joining us. This has been a fabulous, fabulous conversation. I've enjoyed it immensely. I hope, Judith, you have as well. Thank you for joining us. Trina, it's always far out with you, no doubt about it. I love it. And folks, this is how you have intelligent exchange of ideas, you know, and we actually had fun doing it.
Yeah.
Gee, imagine that. Now let's see, Trina, Andromeda 7, how are we working on that? I saw a big owl in the room.
Still a couple weeks out, because
Okay.
we're still working on some technical stuff, and they're trying to do a really top-notch job when we do the first release. So working out some more glitches, and we've been playing with it on Friday nights, trying to see, you know, bringing people in and getting people out, and, you know, just running the banners at the bottom. We've got opening song, closing song. So we've got some fun stuff coming. But
so how is Al as a supervisor?
Yeah, he's just trying to keep everybody organized. It's like, God help him dealing with 7 women.
I see Al eventually having a cigar to the side of his mouth going, what the hell was I thinking?
He already had that going last night. So yeah.
Well, Al, we send you abundant joy. David Barry, excellent graphic work. And
David, thank you so much. He's
very talented.
So much. Such hard work.
You need to strike out, brother. You got yourself a talent there.
Yeah.
Love you. And so the Milky Way Soul Tribe doing all right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Robert's good. He's been working a lot, you know, in the weather now. It's really making it rough on him. He's working some seriously wicked hours. I'm like, oh, Robert, seriously. Wow.
I saw him bundled up there, and it was like, yeah, because it got really cold, and he's further north than I am. So
yeah, he said it was 10 degrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, oh God, that's cold.
As they say, that's the only time all men are created equal. So we move on. Judith, thank you, my dear. It's such a joy. Let's have you back on again. Hope you'll join us. And I can't wait to see what the next one. All right, folks, we will see you tomorrow. Be good. Have yourself a great